everybody, and welcome to a spooky Halloween-themed Pod Stallions. I'm Brian, and with me, as always, is Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And we thought of the perfect episode, something that I obsessed over as a kid, and I'm hoping you did as well, too, Jason. The Gill Man, the creature from the Black Lagoon. Were you a fan as a kid?
It's funny that you say that, Brian. I was a huge fan, and I was not only, as we always do, trying to figure out when was it, did I know of him before I saw him in something, that sort of thing. But also that I would say, much as I love the Universal monsters, and I love Karloff, the Frankenstein monster, etc., my favorite of all the Universal monsters is the Gill Man, hands down. That design and just everything about it, I feel like it's iconic in a different way that just seems so modern to me. But yes, I was always a big fan, and I think my first exposure might have been from that horror book that I keep referencing, that with that greenish cover.
Yeah, I think you and I share that. I cannot, and I had a long drive driving my son back to university today, even longer because midway through he forgot his key. But beside the point, and I tried like mad to figure out, how do I know the Gill Man? How do I know the character? And it must have been a book or Cracked magazine, but I've always known who he was. And I've always been obsessed. And I think he would be my number one favorite monster from childhood. Frankenstein sort of took over, but I was obsessed with the creature as a kid. And and I have to think that the Land of the Lost Sleestaks, which I'm also still constantly obsessed with, are somehow related to that whole rigmarole. Like, I think that, there would be no Sleestaks without the creature, sort of thing.
Yeah, there's something, it's hard to put into words because so much of that work is so perfect. Like, it's become, it's hard to know if any of it would have dated, because it's just all so iconic that every generation has sort of had this. So it's hard to put into words. But when I look at that design of the Gill Man, there's something about it that just seems as fresh, today as it would have been then. It's just this.
Yeah, actually, like, I guess we can just jump around because I don't know if you've ever followed it, but for years they've talked remake. And there's been all kinds of different, things. Like, I believe that the earliest one I can think of was they were going to remake it in the early 80s. Oh. And they turned it into Jaws 3D. Which really has the exact same plot as Revenge of the Creature, if you think about it. It's like a Marineland situation, and the Gill Man gets in there. But I had read that was supposed to be an 80s remake of Revenge of the Creature. They turned it into Jaws 3D, the classic that we all know and enjoy. And then there was talk of a big-budget John Carpenter remake. And, of course, you and I are both huge John Carpenter fans. And I've even seen some of the designs they were going to use. And I'm glad they never made it. Not that it would have taken anything away from the classic, but I honestly feel like you can't improve upon that. You can't put CGI. Like, my wife still thinks the creature is creepy. Like, when we watch it, she goes, "Yeah, he gives me the creeps." And there's a realness to that, and I do not think all the CGI in Hollywood can make that better. It is really great, and it's a moment in time, and it just needs to be rewatched. I don't want Peter Jackson and Guillermo del Toro to recreate it. I don't know why that is. I'm very zen about remakes. I don't care, or they're great. Like, they can either be good or they can be crappy. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't bother me. But that one's like that thing where it's like, don't bother. It's perfect.
You can, I feel like you can remake the look of Frankenstein's monster, and we've seen a bunch of it. There is the iconic classic that we all know, but that's a variation you can play with, you know.
But the Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, they're concepts.
Yes, exactly, and the Wolfman too. The
Wolfman, yeah, absolutely.
You know, American Werewolf in London style on all fours. You can do whatever, but there's something about this that is just so specific that
because he was made for a film.
Yeah,
he isn't based on anything in myth. Well, you know, there's probably some myth, but it is a product of its time. It is a very well done product of its time, and it feels almost like lightning in a bottle. Like the film itself is a what you would call a pot boiler, a programmer in a way.
Yeah,
but it has exceptional moments in it.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's actually. Well, I was going to say in terms of, I don't remember her name, but I remember this.
Julie Adams.
Rewatched it a few years back, and I was kind of surprised at just how sexy she is.
Oh yeah, she's
very
gorgeous.
Well. I mean, the swimsuit, like all of it, just seems that it's taking. We're stepping forward a bit. Like it's slightly ahead of its time in that regard. And there is kind of there's a lot of innuendo throughout it too, if I remember. And the relationship and everything. But you're right. That might be exactly what it is. That it's kind of like Giger's Alien. I mean, even though that was a design that existed, some of that stuff existed prior, and it was morphed into what it was. But it's kind of like that design is what it is for that thing, and you don't want to see it kind of messed with. Even when you do variations, they're never as good as the original.
No, the original, I agree with you. The original is still, the best concept. Now, Alien does have one thing going for it, isn't that the creature was a xenomorph. So there was sort of you could play with it. It opened the door for sequels.
Yes. Oh, totally.
And the creature, that's the other thing that's wonderful about the creature is it had a trilogy of movies in the 50s.
So it was Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Revenge of the Creature,
and
The Creature Walks Among Us,
and Porky's 2,
Porky's 2, and Porky's 3, Porky's Revenge.
By
the way, my wife and I put that on for 10 minutes, and did we talk about this where everyone's 40?
Yeah.
Sorry, then. Yeah.
Anybody else that I would have talked to about Porky's?
Okay, then we won't go there again.
I think it was you.
But it is. I think my main knowledge of the creature came from the Crestwood House Monster Series books that I've talked about a million times on here and on my blog. The two books that I took out, I think I was just returning and taking out obsessively as a kid, were the Creature book and the Godzilla book, because I grew up outside of Toronto, but my parents didn't have a converter or anything like that, so I didn't get to see a lot of monster movies. So I would read about them and hope I'd see them someday. And I think I read the Crestwood Creature book probably 100 times. And I was heartbroken at The Creature Walks Among Us. I was just heartbroken to find out the creature dies in the third film.
Spoilers.
I'm sorry. Oh my goodness.
Please, well, it's funny
my apology, everyone.
Those damn Crestwood books, that is, of all the things we've ever talked about, that come up repeatedly, that is that one thing that prior to this show, to talking to you about it, I have no recollection of those books. I don't know why. They might have been around, but I don't think I ever saw those in any form when I was a kid for some reason. And I seem to be very much in the minority. Like, everybody seems to know these things. So I never got, so you had a whole book devoted to him?
Yeah.
One of those Crestwood? See, that would have been, I just remember bits from the book. And then I remember, I think the next thing, and this is a very fuzzy, memory. There was a resort in Minnesota called Breezy Point Resort.
Yeah, you've mentioned it before. That's the Bill Murray place.
Nick the Lounge Singer.
Yeah.
He's up at Breezy Point, and because that was Franken and Davis, Minnesota guys, kind of help him with that. And we were up there once, and they would have like, I don't even know what this place is. Like I can't even picture what the resort was or what that meant, but we didn't do that much. Our family didn't do stuff together. So it was I was very, very young, and they would have events at night, like a little, jamboree or something, or like a cookout. And then one tent had black and white movies, and it was a double bill, Abbott and Costello. I don't think it was one of the monster ones. I think it was just Abbott and Costello, and then Creature from the Black Lagoon. And that would have been the first time that I saw it. They played it in a tent at Breezy Point. If you wanted to go and pull up a folding chair with a bunch of people and sit and watch it, but I knew it because of seeing the picture in that horror book, I think. And then I just loved him. It's a lot of it is down to the design. I couldn't have told you anything about the movie after that.
Well, that's one of the most wonderful things that we should talk about, because this is a pioneering moment. The creature's design has been largely attributed to makeup man Bud Westmore.
Yes.
And of course, Westmore seminally was known for replacing Jack Pierce, the creator of the Universal Monsters.
Yeah.
But the creature is the youngest of the Universal Monsters, much, much later. But Westmore kind of buried the name that actually designed the creature, which is a woman by the name of Millicent Patrick. Mm-hmm. She was a Disney animator. And
it kind of existed, and then she came in and modified, and that's what we have. Isn't that how it goes? Like there was something kind of there, but what we have is what she did. She came in and modified it.
Yeah, she is credited as the and I have seen the original look of the Gillman, and it's very how do you put it? Like it's very smooth, and it doesn't have the same. It's not iconic.
Okay.
But yeah, she designed that the approved Gillman, which is the one that we are like. I'm pretty sure I've got a picture of him in this room. I don't even know anymore. I know I have a lot of merchandise.
I was going to say, you probably got a toy or two.
I do. What an unrequited life as a kid looking for creature merchandise. As a kid, the only thing I ever saw were the pen plaques aquarium creatures.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that.
Because I grew up in a mall. I don't know if I've ever explained this. Probably have. Well, my grandparents owned a store.
Did they find you there? Like, is it?
No. Well, there is.
As a youngling, and you were raised by security guys. Okay.
I was at the Orange Julius. What happened was my grandparents, my parents were entrepreneurs, and my grandparents owned a store in the mall. And what my parents would do regularly, I might add, is like, if they needed to go do something on Saturday, often they worked, they would go, oh, we're going to drop you off at the mall, you can be with your grandparents. And no complaints here, okay? Because I would go to visit my grandparents, they would feed us, they would give us $5 and tell us to piss off, like nicely, like go play in the mall.
Yeah.
And, and everybody that ran a store in that mall kind of knew us, like the places I went to, like the drugstore and the hobby store. I got locked in the drugstore one night. I was like looking at the rack toys. This doesn't bode well for my future. And then all of a sudden all the lights went off, like chunk, 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 chunk.
Ooh.
I was like, uh-oh. And I'm like 5, right? And I go to the front door of the drugstore, and my sister's walking by, and she gets this big smile on her face. The drugstore, and I'm like, dong, 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 like on the, get me out of here. And
so that would explain a lot. So this is like,
oh yeah, there's deep trauma around rack toys,
which is why you just became a junkie, a rack toy.
Oh, maybe, yeah. My dad also sold them, so it's a rich tapestry. But I can honestly remember watching that pharmacist, and he was in the white coat, and he had those. He had that, like, Hank Hill haircut and those big old, National Health glasses, and my grandmother's, like, begging him to open the door, and he's apologizing. I honestly do. That's a very vivid memory. But where I was trying to go with that is, there was a place called Angel Hut Pets, and they had, hundreds of aquariums, and that was like, the tour of the mall would be to go to Woolco and look at the toys, then to the hobby store and look at the toys. Yeah. Then I would go to the bookshop and look at the 3 packs of comic books. And then, the connoisseur that I was, I would then top the evening off by looking at all the creatures and the guy in the scuba, the guy in the diving suit. I also
find Bordeaux, put on your.
Oh yeah. Nice bottle of Beaujolais. And I had a fascination with guys in those diving suits too. So this was, heaven for me. And that was my, Saturday adventure in the Whitby Mall. And
you're like Mowgli of the mall.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there were other kids. That was the other thing. Is
everybody, all the workers in the mall kind of raised you at different times. They all kind of were just like Mowgli. You spoke all their languages. You could talk to the electronics guy. You could talk to the Orange Julius guy. You're like you
kid. But I
love it.
I would play with there was a Dutch store, like a Dutch deli.
Sure, of course.
And I would play with those kids, and then the hobby store guy had 3 kids. So we'd end up being like 11 children, like walking into this, just getting into trouble. And
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a movie.
It's an unusual childhood, but it's probably one of my favorite things. And I equate the creature with that because I remember seeing that Penn Plax thing and wanting it desperately.
I remember seeing that. I would make excuses to go over. I never owned fish. I mean, I didn't have. I had a bird named Higgins in junior high that I got, and then eventually got a dog in high school. It didn't work out too well, but I never had fish or any of that stuff as a kid. And I remember staring at that thing and wanting it so badly, but thinking, well, there's no point in getting it if you don't have an aquarium because it's got this mechanism and like, what's the point? And I was always torn of like, well, maybe I could just buy it and like put it on my dresser or something. But no, I don't have. And there were times where I even thought, well, maybe I could get an aquarium, start getting into fish, and then that's a reason to have the thing. But that would be the piece of merchandise that I remember the best. I mean, I think there were, by the time, you reached certain age, there were Halloween costumes that made the rounds and, the Ben Cooper stuff, the Wigglers and the,
I missed all the AHI stuff. I swear to God, I never saw any AHI monster stuff as a kid. I saw the Star Trek, I saw the apes, I vividly remember my dad, we had to stop somewhere like on a Saturday morning, like any family trip usually meant my dad also would work, right? So we stopped off at like a big variety store and my dad was putting in, the general merchandise section for the store while we were waited because it was like a way of writing off the day, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I can honestly remember my dad talking to me and going, yeah, I'll be up another 5 minutes. And he was putting parachuting Spocks on a peg, What? And I remember staring at those going, I want one of those, but I know that I'd have to wait until, like, I couldn't take it from the store. I'd have to, like, just, if I went to my dad's office, he'd just, take whatever you want. I don't care. But I don't remember any of the monsters. I had the Lincoln monsters. I never had the AHI.
Just as an aside, because you brought it up, and your amazing Toy Ventures magazine, which I've just been devouring, so great. I get such a buzz. As you know, we've talked about this a million times, like that It's a Small World catalog and stuff, pre-internet stuff. I still love having the physical catalog or the thing to look at rather than just, on the internet or, to look at it that way. So these beautiful shots, all this stuff. But as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, I wonder if Brian has ever managed to track down like original art of this stuff. Like, or does it exist?
You mean for like the AHI monsters?
Or like the Star Trek stuff and the Space 1990, the colors on these things. Like, I would love a whole book of just the art in one section and then the finished thing, because that art is so crazy that those colors, it's perfect because you can see it on a shelf just jumping out at you.
I've said it a million times. The pre-style guide days of toys, the pink monster card for the creature doll, the Star Trek, the crazy Batman art. Like, I guess I can say it because it happened. But I was working on a project with Mego. Mego had the World's Greatest Superheroes line, and they'd put together a card, and it got rejected by Warner Brothers. And I looked at that card and I thought, this thing is absolutely beautiful. Like, you guys have worked your ass off making the nicest packaging available. And then they shot back the style guide to do, what they wanted. And I felt sorry for them. Like, I was supposed to help out, but unfortunately I couldn't do it. And but I looked at that thing and went, they've just creatively painted them into a corner a little bit. And I shouldn't, but it happened to me too. I did work in style guides as well. And it makes me sad because you look at some of this stuff that Mego did or AHI did or all these toy companies, and they used to have this wonderful range to create the best packaging possible, and it popped off the shelf and it looked good. And there wasn't some middle management, brand guy who's just there, and you know this better than anybody. There's somebody in licensing whose whole job is to justify his existence by nitpicking your shit.
Yeah.
And it drives you crazy.
Yeah.
Because you're like, what's right for the property, especially you. Or, and they want to go, no, that has to be gray. You have to remove that. And you're just like, you just want to give them the finger. You're all you do, you're a thief of joy, Sorry, that's a little PTSD from my days in licensing.
But it is true. Like, even when things started to kind of become, slightly uniform more in the early '80s and things like that.
Yeah.
There was still kind of, some variations in creativity and stuff. But yeah, that whole I think when you look at this stuff, that monster stuff.
Yeah.
These are black and white characters that the reason we think in terms of the Wolfman being brown is because of all the merchandise. The Wolfman was actually more like, I think he was more gray or something because it was like yak hair. But somebody said, oh, he should be brown. And then it became, so all this stuff, the green and all this, like, we know some things on set, whatever. There's very little color evidence to see what these things sort of looked like. So our memories of all this stuff, it's vivid because of all that merchandise.
Oh, and yeah, absolutely.
When you look at that stuff and the way it's packaged, you're like, I would, can you imagine that on the shelf today? I think it would draw people over just wondering, what the hell, what is that? Look at that thing. Like, yeah. There's nothing that vibrant or exciting anywhere in the store.
Except if you look at like a boutique house, and I don't know how they get away with it, but you look at a boutique house like Super 7, and they do these just gorgeous things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where, I could never I have all the Super 7 Planet of the Apes, and I have some of the monsters. I can never take those off the card. I feel like I'd be wrecking them.
Did you seen the thing that Hasbro just did? Those 4-inch Marvel figures?
Yeah, that brought some hope. That
look at that
good.
Oh, why is this taking so long? Like, this is gorgeous. Like,
yeah, I don't really weigh in on modern toys much, mostly because it seems so weighted with rage. Like, everyone's so.
But that's a thing you can look at and go, I know exactly that's immediately given me a vibe, and it's like exciting me. It just takes me right back.
It gives me a vibe, but it also feels like its own thing. Like, I don't sit there and go like, oh, they're just knocking off superpowers. They're trying to do this sort of like, what if Mego and Secret Wars had a baby, and this was what it would look like? And it's like, that's a totally believable what if toy line.
Well, it's also like I defy you. Try to find an Iron Man figure in the last 20 years, and there's been a lot of really wonderful ones, including the very first Marvel Legend Iron Man. I think is probably the best one in that range of like 6-inch figures. But try to find one that has the coloring that you would have seen on Iron Man in 1978.
Yeah,
like Mego. It's just doesn't exist.
When I saw those things, I'm kind of like, I'm really a hard person to get to buy modern toys, and I did not order them. But if I'm telling you right now, if I'm at Toys R Us and those are on the shelf, that Captain America for sure is going home with me. You know, like I just have to have that. But getting onto monsters or the creature, I guess, one of the biggest regrets I've had, speaking of modern toys, is about 3-4 weeks ago. I had my head down with the magazine sales, especially one day, and I hadn't gone online for hours, like, you know, and then I went on Facebook, and I went into the Pod Stallions group. Hi, everybody. And they're all talking about a Super 7 put a creature figure in a box exactly like the Penplax creature.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, it hit every button, like, bup, 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 I need that. And I went and they were sold out because I was sleeping. I was doing something else. And that's the first time, I think, in years that I went, ah, you know, like not, oh, well, it wasn't meant to be, which is my usual mood.
Did you ever see did Funko or Super 7 or somebody did that 66 Batmobile a year or two ago, I think. Yeah. It was like red.
Yeah, like the Japanese version, yes.
Yeah, like I thought that was pretty cool too. Like, yeah, if that was something I could just see on the shelf, I would completely grab that. But anyway, I didn't mean to digress, but
no, that's fine.
The art in that magazine is just so, like, I just, you know.
Speaks for itself.
And just as an aside also, I saw something listed I didn't think I saw a photo of. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
So with all the Star Trek stuff, you had one listing for battery-powered Enterprise, and then in parentheses said, possibly not produced.
Okay, there is no actual photo of it.
So what was that, do you have an idea what that was going to be?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do, because I have the battery-powered Super Friends car. It was going to be an Enterprise, I'm assuming, that had wheels on it. And it would probably have one of those remote controls that's just a wire attached to it.
Yep.
So that's what it was going to be. There is a drawing of it in the magazine, but it is a very nondescript drawing of the Enterprise. So it doesn't, like, jump out at you.
Okay. Then I got it. And that would be, I'm like, oh my God, that would have been, I wish it would have existed, because all that stuff.
Well, the thing that's really interesting is, it could exist. You know, it just may have been produced in such teensy-weensy numbers.
Oh, I see.
I don't believe it does, because Star Trek, there's always been somebody collecting Star Trek.
Yeah, it would have turned up at some point.
Yeah. There's some insanely rare AHI Superman pieces. And a while ago, I can't remember the guy's, I think his name is Bill, but he runs a company called Vintage Toy Rescue. He bought this Superman collection, and he brought it to Mego Meet, and he had all of those, you know, extremely rare AHI Superman pieces. And I remember going like, yeah, there was always somebody buying Star Trek shit.
Yeah,
you know, so I don't believe it exists.
I love the fact that you've got that they did, you know, that you had the Star Trek, you had the phaser that shot discs. And then you had a phaser that shot water. So you go, okay, well, they didn't reuse it. They reused it a few times, but they at least made 2 different ones.
Yeah.
Then I look at the stun gun for Space 1999, and I see, oh, look, there's like a water gun, there's a disc gun, or, you know, whatever. And then I see this target set that has sucker darts with the stun gun. And I'm going, that's the first time I've ever seen a variation on the stun gun that shot sucker darts instead of discs, which means they made like 3 different versions of the stun gun. And I think I had the one that shot discs, because I had the Star Trek utility belt with the disc shooting phaser and stuff like that. And I think I had the stun gun maybe as a kid. The more I look at this, but sorry, but it's such a great. It's so fun to
very much. Yeah, I guess we really haven't spoken about it.
No, we really haven't. It's just beautiful. I just love it, and I can't wait to see your collection of the Waltons in there.
Well, the Waltons are issue 15.
Okay.
Yeah, issue
I'll hang,
2.
I'll
I'm working very hard on issue 2 right now, and I've got some really neat stuff coming into it, man. I want to get into it, but you
didn't really see much in the way of monster stuff as a kid, especially not.
I saw monster stuff. I had the Lincoln Monsters. I always bought Cracked, when they did the monster issues. I was a monster kid, but it was very hard to buy things. My first creature collectible was I think it was Collegeville did a rubber mask in like 81. And I saved all my money to buy it, and I can still remember the smell of that, like the bin at SS Kresge and Company. But I was so excited to own the creature, and then I made my mom buy me some green Playtex gloves, and I wore that I think for Halloween in the 6th grade. Awesome. I wore it to my 7th grade dance, and I remember that. I was really really excited about it.
That is, you could, because of like that Munsters episode where Uncle What's His Name shows up, you could
Uncle Gil.
You could just wear like a turtleneck, the mask, the glove.
I'm pretty sure I wore a green sweater and 2 clean Playtex gloves.
Yeah, but
I'm sure
could have gone like
the shittiest creature ever.
A plaid shirt and an ascot and corduroys with the mask and the gloves, and it still would have been cool because it's like he's kind of acclimating. He just he'd like to dress more like a human, to go to this party or whatever, and it would still work. You could still go out for Halloween like that.
Yeah, you got me.
Outside of that fish tank thing, I'm not sure. I might have seen like the jigglers because I remember having a couple of those. Like I think the Frankenstein maybe, or like I know I had the Spider-Man because there was that Woolworths in the Maplewood Mall in St. Paul. And it was, that when Woolworths existed in malls in the U.S. where the actual lettering above the door was like gold lettering for Woolworths. Do you remember that? Like, in shopping malls and stuff.
Yeah, like Woolworths were never malls for us. They were always like usually downtown,
like standalone kind of thing.
Yeah, like Woolco's were malls here. But I never knew of a Woolworth that was in a mall.
When I think of all your stuff, and I think of Plaid Stallions, I think of Rack Toys, I think of all that, this is besides the pharmacy I've told you about, Borgstrom Pharmacy in St. Paul, that Woolworths in the Maplewood Mall is what I think of, because around Halloween, you'd come through the front door, and of course it seemed huge, like it's had a ton of stuff, and immediately to your right, were like 3 double rows just filled with Halloween stuff. And that smell you're talking about, the rubber mask smell, like once you walk the door, you just got a whiff. To this day, if I smell that rubber mask smell, I think of just getting lost in those aisles and just looking at every.
Yeah. When that Halloween stuff would hit, you'd lose 20 minutes.
Oh my God. It just, and you just wanted everything. And that's where I also saw like stuff, that would have been the store that I saw things like the Star Raiders.
Yeah.
Because all that shit would have been in that store. And it just seemed to have all this stuff. And Mego, it still had Mego stuff, and I just loved it. I just loved going in there. But I associate that very much with the monster stuff.
Yeah, me too. And that's what I was into. It was like monster stuff only arrived seasonally, like I don't know why that is, but it seems to get worse and worse, where they think we're only going to be interested in Frankenstein from, in the pumpkin spice month. And I want Frankenstein 12 months a year.
Yeah.
I am an autumn. I will admit that. I love fall. I'm not a big summer guy, but yeah, that drives me a little batty, to be honest with you. Play on words. No.
But no, it is. It's that's why it's so, this is just the best time of the year, because it's just, when I start to see Christmas stuff, I get depressed. I really do.
Yeah, I'm not a big Christmas guy either.
Well, it also means that like it's pushing Halloween aside. Like give me a minute. Let me just come down from Halloween.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about. I'm not ready yet. Let let me just enjoy all this stuff. And
the one depressing moment I ever had was we used to go to Chiller Theater every year,
mm-hmm.
and it was usually on Halloween. It was usually on the 30th or the 31st, and we went to a Target, your favorite store, right that night before the big dance at Chiller Theater. I think we had gone to dinner, and then we were going to go back to the dance, and I forget what we needed, like if we needed fake blood or something for the costume party. And I was in the Target, and one employee was getting rid of the Halloween stuff, and another employee was like right behind him putting up Christmas.
Oh, you bad.
And it was like I wanted to beat them up, Yeah.
I think I told you.
And now it isn't even now it's like I went into a Michael's store, and they're clearancing all the Halloween stuff. It's the 10th.
I told you. I think I told this story last year. Which seems like a million years ago in a fairyland that existed. But being in Target and coming around one aisle, it was like 6 days before Halloween. And I sort of came around, I'm like, oh, I'm going to keep looking at this stuff. I like looking at it. And, there's a rubber, whatever. And I came around the corner, and the guy was taking stuff down. And I'm going, whoa, hey, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the guy's like, it's over. I said, no, it's not. Yeah. No, it's not. It's in 6 days. Put that shit back. Put it back. Put it back. Put that stuff back. Get the manager. Please, get the manager.
Get the manager in a calendar. I want to talk to him.
Or once a week. I pay my taxes, get the manager, I want to talk about this. This is ridiculous.
It's just gotten worse.
But it was like, what the fuck? He just started taking stuff down. It's like, it hasn't even hit yet. What are you doing?
That's too solid.
But I also want to say that I think, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like Halloween has become more of a thing over the last decade or so. Certainly here.
I got to be honest with you. Americans do Halloween way better than Canadians. We just don't have the same spirit. I love Canada, but that's the one thing where I just I look at how Americans do Halloween. Like, I've been in the U.S. so many times for Halloween, and it's like, I don't know how to make it better.
I think it's like a national holiday. Like, it's the greatest holiday that's ever been ever made, and it gets better and better and better. And it is a thing that it's always been that sort of chunk of time where you see stuff in stores, but I think I see it in more stores. I see more that are sort of doing the color scheme or having the end cap, whether it's like a CVS or a Walgreens or whatever. Everyone has their own sort of line of merchandise. Last year I think Walgreens had stuff like Exorcist, stuffed dolls and things like that.
Yeah, you guys get such crazy stuff. We just don't get it. That's another thing that drives me crazy is
and Nightmare Before Christmas, which is that thing we talked about. It's become ubiquitous at this time of year, where for a decade almost after the movie, like nobody really, there's no big deal until the Japanese sort of said, we're going to make some cool shit, and then
this will be the only year I think I didn't hop the border in October. One, because I can't.
What? I was saying, why?
I always hop.
What kept you?
Current events.
Come on over.
I wish. Although I don't know if my family would be thrilled about that. I would love to, though. We would always hop the border and hit Target and a whole bunch of haunts and get Blueberry and all that great stuff.
Oh yeah.
I love Halloween shopping in the United States, but obviously I'm not going to be able to do that this year, and that's fine. I did find Count Chocula.
We're thinking of you. I just got a box of, I don't know why I couldn't help myself. It's Frosted Flakes, but they're like chocolate Frosted Flakes with ghost marshmallows and Tony the Tiger on the cover dressed like Dracula.
I ordered a box of those.
Yeah.
It's always something I've done for my kids, even though Yeah, I bought, and there's also Reese's cereal shaped like bats. And
Yeah, I'm sorry. It takes a bigger man than me to walk past that.
I'm a sucker for that stuff. I bought 2 boxes of Count Chocula. Nobody in the house really likes Count Chocula. And they were like, why would you just bring this home? And I was like, because that's it.
about the monster cereals, though. There is something different about them. And
yeah,
I know
they changed from sugar to corn syrup, and you can tell.
You can tell, and also because the cereal bits used to be like Lucky Charms cereal bits, where they were more like Cheerio sort of dull, just crunchy bits, and now they're this shiny sort of glossy cereal bit, and it's too much. It's like it to me it diminishes the couple of marshmallows in each spoonful.
If there was ever a testament for my ADHD, it's the fact that we just fly off topic every episode.
Well, clearly I have a bit of it too, because it's like we can't. Well, there's a lot to talk about. We don't talk, and look at this stuff. It's like that's the beauty of doing this in the first place. Is that it's the secret handshake of stuff that you go, oh, I remember that, and then that led to this. So bringing it back around, what I was going to ask was, having said this about how much we love this creature, I think we can both agree, you probably know better than me, that it's not as if we've seen him. I mean, you could probably all day go over the number of other shows or other mediums or things that those classic monsters sort of popped into or were referenced on a Carol Burnett show or, whatever it is. He probably had the least amount of sort of spin-off things where he just showed up like in the Munsters or whatever, like other than the 3 movies.
Well, again, you can't lampoon the creature very easily without getting Universal involved.
But I mean, but like Frank, somebody dresses up like Frankenstein in an episode of Happy Days or something, like the Gill Man didn't show up in a lot of other things other than the 3 movies, the episode of the Munsters. Like, what else did he kind of show up in? Did he ever show up? Because I remember because they riff on him in Mad Monster Party.
Yes, absolutely. There was a lot of archetypes. He's in the Monster Squad, really.
They riff on him in the Monster Squad. They call him the Gill Man, so they're riffing on that original design, it seems. More so.
Yeah, they did a really nice job of that. Was Steve Wang, I think, who did that.
Yeah. But stuff that classic design showed up in? Like other shows? Or?
But, I can remember every comic book you picked up in the 70s, there was ads for posters, and there would be a poster of the Gill Man.
Oh, yeah.
In that.
That full black and white one, kind of?
The full body black and white one in the cave, yeah. That's like burned into our heads. Yeah, I think he had that Aurora model kit that was sold forever.
Yeah.
And I think he actually got 2 Aurora model kits. There's one of him swimming too. And,
isn't he one of the most merchandised of the classic creatures, though?
I wouldn't know if it was like the weight of it. I will say that whenever a toy, like, if you collect classic monster stuff, if there's like a creature, anything, it's probably the most expensive thing. So, like, the Hasbro did a bunch of board games, Dracula, Frankenstein, or they did Frankenstein, the Mummy, I think, and I think the creature one is very valuable. Anything that involves the creature, the price goes up. And I've had some people tell me different things. Like I think one monster collector told me that the creature's like huge in Japan.
Oh, that
and you're competing with Japanese collectors, which makes sense. But there are creature collectors. I have a good friend who is one, but yeah, I remember talking to another friend of mine who's a creature fan, and he was very smart. Like when Sideshow made the creature, he had a store and he ordered a case of it, or 2 cases of it, and then he put those 2 cases in the closet. Like, nope, not for sale. And he said, every comic or toy show I go to, I go back to the case, I pull one out, and I ask my price. And I get it.
Oh, really?
And it's like, oh my God, you genius!
They made. I've got a handful of the. I want to say Sideshow. Maybe it was Diamond. Those 6 or 7 or 8 inch, not cloth figures. The one,
the 7-inch. Yeah, I know those ones. Yeah.
There's like I have the Karloff Mummy. I have the Son of Frankenstein. I have the Wolfman. That creature from the Black Lagoon figure is phenomenal.
Yeah, I bought one. So I bought it the day it came out. I was in a comic store, and I said, and that's going home with me. And I put it in the closet, and I forgot about it.
Mm.
And my son was being born, so this was years later. And I went, I was cleaning out the room that was my office was going to become the nursery.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it, and I said, well, I never displayed this or did anything with it. I guess I'll sell it. And I think I got $50 for it. I remember going, oh, okay. I just put it on eBay, creature figure, mint on card.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was a nice, it turned out to be an unnecessary investment. I mean, I didn't really mean to do that, but it was a collectible right away. The only creature action figure I ever ran into was the Remco mini monster.
So Remco, those are the four Remco figures. They were done, right, were there 4 of them or 5 of them?
There's 6 of them.
6 of them, so Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, Phantom of the Paradise, Opera, the Gill Man,
Mummy,
Superfly,
Bruce
Valanche, and Superfly.
Yeah.
What was the other one? The Mummy, Frankenstein, monster?
Mummy, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula, and the Creech. And, I always wanted to figure out, they actually made a play set for them. I always wanted to figure out, what they would all be doing together.
What are they talking about and hanging out?
Are they the young ones and they just all live there? Why would these guys be friends?
I always wonder, who gets the most action of them, I mean, we assume that Dracula does because he's,
the Mummy gets laid all over town.
Hypnotizes. Right, but I think the Wolfman's very underestimated. I think people think he's got no tact, but his hair is perfect, as you know.
Hey, dude, I bought a Leho Fuchs t-shirt recently. And
I'm gonna shock you here.
Yeah.
And tell you that I don't think I know who that is.
You just referenced Werewolf in London.
Oh, sorry. I was just referencing the song, but
yeah, so was I.
Well, Leho Fuchs, the restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying the guy who played him was Leo Fuchs or somebody.
No. I was.
Leho Fuchs. How'd you get that? Where'd you get that?
It came up on a Facebook ad of and it was one of the first times that something's hey, you'd like this. Most of the time, the stuff that Facebook, for a long time, the T-shirts Facebook would suggest to me were horrifying. Some guy would draw Velma from Scooby-Doo in various stages of undress, and they were not flattering drawings. And I was why does Facebook think that that's what I want to wear? And then
you'll love this Father Knows Best T-shirt.
You'll love this Father Knows Best T-shirt with Rusty.
No.
Yeah. So this one time it said things we think you'd like, and it was oh, hot damn, I need that Leho Folks t-shirt. No one has gotten that reference, and I am...
Oh, I got it. I just didn't understand what
I mean wearing it. Nobody has
got it. You got it. You wear it around and nobody gets it.
I wear it around because I want one person to get that,
To be fair, people are a little distracted right now. So maybe they're...
You need to pay attention to me.
Maybe if you had it on your mask.
I have a hilarious House of Frightenstein mask.
Oh, there you go.
And absolutely no one has commented on that either.
Running to you going, hey, where'd you get that? I gotta get one.
I'm gonna wear my creature mask from '82.
Who was the werewolf in Werewolves of London?
Henry Hall.
Henry Hall, that's right.
You know how I know that? Crestwood Monster Books.
That's right. He's the cover of one of the Crestwoods, right?
He is. Yeah, and he was very vain, so he didn't allow a lot of makeup, much like Jack Nicholson in Wolf.
Much like the song. So that there's just something very pleasing about that, and I think also the green of the Gilman, the particular green that's used on most of the '70s products. Yeah, that bright green, it doesn't make sense, but I friggin' love it.
I am not in that school of Like sometimes you release, like I think Mego released some Universal Monster toys that they're going to be, and people will sit there and go, "Oh, Frankenstein's jacket is green. Oh, that bothers me." I like it a little cartoony. I don't really have a problem with it at all.
It's funny because that goes back to, not that, like I say, like go back to the Marvel stuff. Like, not that we haven't gotten brighter colors or there's a 6-inch Captain America Marvel Legends type that's very bright comic book style, but they're few and far between. And there's something to it. And Alex Ross always talks about it, and I push back on it quite a bit because I know what he's saying, but he has this sort of dream that one day he's going to see more comic book type colors in the costumes of some of the superhero characters. Like this, this dull red and this dark blue.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
And like Christopher Reeve, like, why can't we do that again? And it's like, well, I get it. You're trying to get this realism in this world or, whatever. But I think there's something really attractive about all of that. Like that, the brightness, like there's something really inviting about it, that just, it's vibrant. Those colors are, and the same thing with the monsters. I mean, it's what's really extraordinary when you think about this monster stuff, where this is pretty dull product to push. I mean, on paper, what I'm saying is, from the ground up, you got to go. We got to do something really sexy with this, and I'm seeing bright blue, bright green, pink, and do this, and then boom, you've got these. You've suddenly
circling
got
back to like AHI,
the way they look, their colors and everything.
Circling back to AHI just for a second, you had a mentality there where they were making toys that looked like kids kind of had input. Whenever anybody did a mummy figure, like the AHI mummy figures are often draped in blood. And the Lincoln monsters also, like they just, they took that white figure and they flicked red paint at them, and I think that's what kids did with the Aurora models, and I think that's where that happened. And the AHI creature has these lovely red nails. So this isn't. I mean,
you saying the AHI, the Gillman?
The Gillman, the creature figure had these red nails, and those details are important to sell to children.
Yes, absolutely.
And like MC Diamond Select made an 8-inch Creature from the Black Lagoon figure that I'm very proud to say my friend Sean sculpted, and it's probably the perfect 8-inch Mego-esque creature. Like, it's the zenith, and so much so that Mego is redoing it. It'll be in Walmart this month, and they didn't try to do anything new with it because it's so nice, and a lot of people are going to be happy about getting it for $15, and that's great. And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. But I like the AHI creature better. Like, I just do. It's a toy.
I think part of it too is like there was a mentality with a lot of that stuff. Whereas again today everything is much more, like I say, that 7-inch figure, that 6-inch figure of the Gillman is fantastic. The coloring is what it is, and it's great. Yeah. But the Funko stuff, Super 7 stuff, what they've been doing with the monster stuff and the bright colors and shit.
Yeah, I love it.
So I think there was also this kind of, like, even up to the Rocketeer. I remember when the Rocketeer hit, and this stuff you can, by the 6 months later, you could get these things for, a nickel. But do you remember that company Applause that would get a license for everything from Dick Tracy, Batman? Like, Applause just put out, PVCs and plush and whatever. But everything they made of the Rocketeer, like most of the merchandise, has the jacket red. Mm-hmm. Instead of the brown. And I'd imagine some genius, in licensing or whatever, said that's just too dull to put on stuff. Like, make it red, and they've got to make it something exciting about it, because he's just all wearing just one color, kind of, And so a lot of this stuff back then, I think they're embellishing, because it's like, it's exciting. I mean, even the original Star Wars line, like the Cantina guys, like the bright outfits they're wearing and stuff. Like, I love that stuff. I love that sensibility, and it made it more exciting than just a dull figure, just one color or just one kind of look, Brilliant stuff.
No, I like, there's a fine line between total accuracy and toys. And I'm a kid at heart. I'll admit it. And when I look at, and I just did a video on the AHI monsters, and there's a figure of Frankenstein they did that I just think is perfect. It is not the most, who it's supposed to be, but you also want to take it into a sandbox and have it fight your Spider-Man. And to me, that's like, ooh, that is perfect. Like, that is the sweet spot. And I've held a bunch of the, the Mezco 1/12 scale figures. I had the Frankenstein in my hands, and I kind of went, nah, I don't need it.
Yeah, they're like you say, they're really nice, and they're very
gorgeous.
They're beautiful.
But, yeah.
I don't, it doesn't really do. I like, and I think that's becoming more popular too. I think the stuff that Super 7 is doing, and I've always complimented Brian on this stuff, like just,
Oh yeah, they've kind of straddling that line, and I love it.
Yeah, the packaging, the design, the coloring, or saying like this may not be the main one, but this is the variant, and we're really going to go off the rails with this and stuff. And I think there's an audience for that stuff.
I think so, and I continue to vote with my dollar when I can.
Yeah. I noticed. Speaking of the Parachute Men too, I noticed. I don't know why I never really noticed this growing up. That Spock had a lot of makeup on. I knew that Spock had kind of an eyeshadow, and I knew that the eyeshadow was always on a lot of the merchandise, the Halloween costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think I ever really noticed that he was that much a different tone or shade than, Shatner or whatever. But when you look at some of the merchandise and like the Parachute Men, they really accentuate that. That, Kirk's pretty, peach, brown, and Spock is like that strange, I don't know what it is, it's almost more white than anything,
Yeah, I do know that. And it is funny to see how much eyeshadow Mr. Spock really had on him.
Yeah, he was glam. He was completely glammed up,
The one thing I wanted to mention about the creature that, really excited me as a kid was Revenge of the Creature, played on a local Buffalo channel in 3D when I was a kid, and you could not buy 3D glasses for it because they weren't available in local stores in Ontario. So I had to watch these commercials, but I luckily had 3D glasses from the Jack Kirby comic Battle for a 3D World.
Oh, yeah.
I had purchased at Becker's. And so I was able to actually watch Revenge of the Creature in 3D, and that was one of the happiest moments I had when I was 11. I just remember being, like, thrilled to be able to actually catch that. And Revenge of the Creature is probably my favorite creature film, mainly because there's some kind of wacky moments in it, and there's a scene where he picks up and tosses a guy at a tree that's absolutely hilarious.
That was the same director, right? Is the first one? Was it Jack, what's his name?
Was it Jack Arnold?
I think he did two of them. Maybe he did I don't remember, but I thought he did the second one, maybe.
Jack Arnold was a really amazing guy. He made some really cool stuff. Good Lord, he died in 92. I had no idea. I think I'd heard he lost a leg.
He lost a leg?
Yeah, I heard that he lost a leg somewhere.
Did he ever find it?
I'm sure he didn't. Oh, he directed some Love Boats. I'm some Buck Rogers. Oh, I like Jack Arnold a lot.
Hey, gotta feed the monkey.
Yeah. Look at all that work he did. Mod Squad. Oh my stars! I hadn't looked into Jack Arnold.
By the way, why was there never any Mod Squad merchandise?
There was.
Was there? Besides like a board game? They never made toys, or they never.
Yeah, they made some toys. I think there's some rack. I think there's a rack toy, but there's also an Aurora model kit of their car, like their Woody, and I think it comes with figurines.
Because they famously didn't carry guns in the show.
No.
So that, and I thought, well, it's kind of aimed at youngsters, but I don't know if I've ever seen a piece of Mod Squad merchandise in all my years of looking at stuff. But
oh, really? Yeah, no, I have. There's a little bit of Mod Squad merch. There's comic books and
they did Rat Toys, huh?
I'm pretty sure they did. I can't. Don't hold me to that, but I think I've seen it. I was a Mod Squad. Mod Squad was one of the things that got me kind of kicked out of university. Because I used to stay up till like 2 a.m. and watch it every night. I got addicted to it. And I loved Lincoln B. Hayes.
Yeah, he was in the Omega Man.
Yeah. No, he wasn't. No, that's.
I know. I always get them mixed up.
They both have that same name.
No, wait a minute. Who was in the Mod Squad? Wasn't that Clarence Williams III?
Clarence Williams III. That's and Lincoln Kilpatrick is in the Omega Man and in Soylent Green, and they are both kind of similar. Yeah, so Lincoln. That's the thing. It's like the Tom Bosley from Charlie's Angels thing.
I'm so glad you brought up Soylent Green because
I was when don't I?
That was on TCM about 2 weeks ago, and I bet I haven't seen it front to back in. I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
Boy, is that tough to watch. And what I mean is that opening.
I love it.
The opening. You're looking at everything that's being said and talked about in the early 70s, and it's all come to pass. It's all happened, and it's very prophetic. Outside of the actual technology, fashion, clothing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't realize what a shit Heston's character is in that, and I liked it more because of that. He is not.
He's kind of a dick.
He is not heroic. He is not. No. He is. He
typical standard 70s anti-hero.
Yeah, totally. He is not a nice fella, and I watched it. I watched the whole thing, and I never knew that Soylent Green was people until I finally caught the ending.
Yeah, sorry, did you finally? Spoilers. I have a box of Soylent Green in my kitchen. How do we keep getting there? The other reason I really like Revenge of the Creature is John Agar, Mr. Shirley Temple. I for some reason I have this affection for that actor. And in fact, I just saw him last night. I was watching John Carpenter's Body Bags, which I told you off air, and he played a doctor in that. It was so nice to see him.
Is that the one? Which one? Which short?
It's the Mark Hamill short where he loses his eye and he gets he's married to Twiggy.
Man, the body. How about those? How about the open and close on the body bag, like the Carpenter stuff? That's weird stuff.
It's okay.
That is weird stuff.
Yeah, I think at the time my friend was working for K&B. So he told me all about Body Bags before I saw it.
Oh, wow.
And when I finally saw it, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of knew this was all going to happen because I've seen it. We drove to like New York City or something together, so he told me all about it.
I still say Carpenter from, early 70s, Assault on Precinct 13 on, hits, effort for effort, right up until about, 86. No, shit, what am I saying? Right up until In the Mouth of Madness is a great movie. It's
fantastic. My friend Sean's, one of my friend Sean's first films. Actually.
So good. So, he had, when you step back and really look at that track record, he had it going on. Like, anybody would kill to get 3 of those movies in their career at any time. And he just kept going, and every single one was, iconic and did really well. And, I miss all that stuff. we talked about this before, in the episodes we've done about, marathoning stuff and quarantine cinema and so on. But all of this stuff, especially around this time of year with Halloween and monster stuff and going to, missing all the stuff that was normal to do, that involves people and activities and things. And I think it just makes me more nostalgic for the world that we sort of grew up in. And, stuff. And we really did, it really was, we sound like snobs with this stuff, but I talk to people that are, 10 years younger, 15 years younger and stuff. There's a reason that a lot of this stuff that was there before they were born, that we experienced, or maybe in the early 80s when they were kids or mid 80s, whatever, was still our era.
Yeah.
The thing about, we kind of own a shit ton of pop culture from early 70s for a good 20 years or so. There is a massive amount of pop culture that, even though the monster stuff was earlier and it had the resurgence on, 50s television and 60s television stuff, I think in terms of the 70s, as all of these things, when I think of the rack toy era, all this stuff that wasn't on the air anymore, these movies didn't exist, Planet of the Apes, only was a TV show and a cartoon, all this stuff that has remained iconic, Star Wars, all this stuff, Star Trek, the Second Life and all that. It's all the stuff we got to have and we got to experience. And I feel very, very lucky that
it's like somebody wants this kind of like, I hate to say this, but I was talking to a guy online once, and this guy's whole bag seemed to be, he was a baby boomer, and he kept trying to come on to the forum. It was a Gen X kind of Mego forum, and going on and on about how, you guys missed out. You guys missed out on the greatest time to be alive, which is the 60s, and I kept thinking, the greatest time to be alive is when you're 8. That's what you're going to be nostalgic for, and it doesn't matter what it is. The 80s wasn't the greatest generation unless you're 8 years old in the 80s. You know what I mean? It doesn't. It's all relative to you.
It is, but
but I mean, what he said to me,
the pushback to me for him would be, I get it, and yes, that's the exact argument. 8 years old, etc. I get it.
Yeah.
But the truth is that a lot of the stuff that was iconic in the 60s, and as big as it was, whatever, it took on a second and a different kind of life in the 70s.
Yeah, well, that's what that guy said to me. He said, well, you didn't experience Jack Kirby Fantastic Four. And I said, yeah, I had the Treasury editions. They were giant.
Right.
They formed my opinion of comic books.
We weren't there the day it hit. But when we were kids, it was already, you got to try this.
Yeah.
You got this album in your collection or, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't see the Beatles at Shea Stadium.
The Katzenjammer kids and the little yellow kid. Oh, that was the best era. Let me tell you. You missed out. You
didn't see Henry the first time it debuted in syndication?
You missed the Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland movie? You have no idea.
Shut up. You didn't watch the Ritz Brothers? Yeah. We're all starting to... That starts to sound like that character from Mr. Show we love. The vinyl guy.
Notice they didn't call it TV.
Yeah, the TV is and for a friend, and it's no friend to mine.
It's no friend of mine. No, but there is a line I would draw in the sand where everybody says, "Well, when I was a kid in my era, whatever."
Yeah.
You can then you can kind of get science into it and go look at the amount of stuff that is in our orbit of growing up in that time to now. Let's just say, like I say, early 70s to late 80s or whatever it is. I mean, nobody's pining for 90s stuff. I mean, maybe they are, but
maybe they are. It's just it wouldn't be us.
What sort of was birthed? The Super Mario Brothers movie? Has that become a thing? Like all the stuff.
It's awesome if you're drunk.
We kind of had, has become the gold standard, I think. And so I love when I talk to guys that are 10 years younger, and they're obsessed with the stuff I was obsessed with.
Yeah,
in the late
it's nice. I think there's gems in every decade, but I wouldn't trade anyone for what I'm not envious of another decade. I love my childhood.
Oh yeah,
and I don't think it's better than anyone else's child. I think that's ridiculous. But I would not trade you. Well, what I mean is my kids have nonstop cartoons at a button. They've never grown up without being able to watch, and I exposed them to horrible cartoons and good cartoons. And but Saturday, I would never trade Saturday morning for that.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the difference. And as fortunate as they are, and as fortunate as this generation is to go, I can just press a button and see that thing, they will never know the thrill or the anticipation or the excitement or the communal feeling of, somebody was talking about, the term, water, that's a water cooler show or like a water cooler moment.
Nobody gets that anymore.
Nobody gets that. And there's very few things that even exist that are on a weekly basis or, that get eked out that you have to, and that's of course even going to change even more. And I think something is really getting lost or missing with that we're going to lose a huge chunk of everything. I'm not saying everyone's going to just dismiss it, but the thing being special or the thing having that kind of.
I get it. Like you missed Mad Monster Party, and you just it haunts you for years and years.
I keep talking about this, the Star Wars Holiday Special and the documentary that I'm kind of helping out with, and my take on it, and the way I'm kind of over 40 years of everybody just shitting on it, and it's like the same jokes, the same stuff, and it's like Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It's really easy to kind of sit back and go, oh, but then it came out. Oh boy, did we ever? Well,
actually, I've gained entirely new perspective for that.
No, but I'm saying I didn't come out of it in 1979 going, what a giant piece of shit that was. I came out of it going, that was kind of weird and different, but I'm going to go back and see it again because it's the big screen. It's this experience. It wasn't quite like that everybody just sort of, dismissed this stuff. It's like we went out and saw it again because, when will you get to see it again? Like you have to kind of, so all of this stuff was the anticipation for this stuff, I think, is just, I don't know how people are going to get how exciting that stuff was. Like not knowing what was coming or waiting for something to air or, whatever. Part of me would love to not have had to hunt for all the things we had to hunt for all these years. Now it's just press a button and it shows up at your doorstep.
But the hunt is the best part.
But the hunt is the best part. It's, I just think we're very lucky to understand how special all this stuff is and to have experienced it, I think. But yeah, we're best. We win. That's my
and that's why I don't think that they should remake The Creature. I just don't think you can make it as special as it once was. We live in an age where anything can be made on a computer, and I don't know how you make The Creature interesting.
Maybe that is a good way to sort of bring this home.
All right.
Talk about The Shape of Water. Because
excellent.
Because here's the thing. I love Guillermo del Toro, and he's not perfect by any means, but I love him so much, and I from Kronos forward, I followed everything he's done, and for me, I look at Shape of Water and say, I am glad that it got the accolades that it did. I'm glad that he got the accolades because for me, selfishly, it's like that means we're going to get more Del Toro stuff. That means he's going to eventually get to make In the Mountains of Madness, or he's going to get to make, whatever, that increases his clout. Having said that, that movie did nothing for me. I didn't dislike it. I didn't think it was bad or terrible, whatever. I don't need to see it again. And I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but I was kind of surprised that it took on the life that it did. But it didn't really do anything for me. And as cool as the design is, and it is very, very cool, super cool.
I bet Sean worked on that.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Because to me it's very different too. I don't feel like it's trying to be the Gill Man, the creature from the Black Lagoon. I don't think it's doing that. I think there's overtones.
There's some overtones, but yeah.
That I still, it's a different thing. And I think smartly that it's very different. But
yeah,
what it is about that just didn't, maybe I need to see it again, but I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was good, but I don't think compared to his other stuff, or like Crimson Peak, I think it's just fantastic. All the big budget Hammer, kind of thing. What was your feeling about it?
The Shape of Water?
Yeah.
I just took it as an interesting film. I kind of, when my friend's involved, I think I have to check myself out for my objectivity, but they were telling an interesting story, and it happened to involve, pardon me, Gilman. Sorry, I got allergies going on here. A Gilman character, but I didn't think it actually had any kind of connection to that.
Yeah, no, I think people certainly bring it up. People certainly sort of, say that that's an influence kind of thing, it seems.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely it is, though.
Wouldn't you think
we've never seen a creature like that before? And, there are lots of rip-offs, Monster of Pedras Blancas. There's a bunch of Mexican films. There's a Batwoman movie where she fights a creature, Avatar, essentially. It did hit pop culture pretty good. We did get lots of sea creatures for a while. But he's the one. He's the original.
He's the man.
And he's the best. And, we can all agree he wins. We should probably wrap up here because we're going to do something we've never done before and do an intermission and then talk to our friend David Weiner.
Please put intermission music on this.
I absolutely will, and I'm going to try and steal that Monty Python, And I might let that run a totally long time.
For 20 minutes.
Yeah, 28 minutes. of skate-a-thon music on an organ.
Please do. That would be brilliant.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up, but then we're going to speak to David, and then we're going to sign off.
All right. What am I doing?
Well, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and I suggest you do the same if you have to go.
I'm putting the phone.
Still there. We are now joined by David Weiner, who should be, he's no stranger to this podcast, and if you're listening, you know who he is. And David, you've got an exciting project to talk about, and that is a sequel to your film last year.
Thanks for having me on, guys. As always, as the third rotating chair that rotates 360 degrees. I did a movie called In Search of Darkness. A journey.
I really liked it.
Yeah, it was a journey through 80s horror movies, And it came out a year ago, and it was a 4.5-hour documentary, and it's playing on Shudder now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's on Shudder. And it was such an overwhelmingly positive response that we had to keep on going. And so I've got 2 movies lined up. So I'm working currently on In Search of Tomorrow, which is all about 80s sci-fi movies.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Jason might know a thing or two about that project as well. And that's coming out in the fall. And but currently, surprise, we've got In Search of Darkness Part 2. And we're offering it up now through October. If you it's a pre-sale. So if you go to 80shorror.com, you get another 4.5 hours of 80s horror goodness, brand new interviews, with 15 new faces, along with 40 plus original folks from the last film, and a bunch of new interviews with some of those folks as well. But this time around, we have Robert Englund, we have Tom Savini, we have Nancy Allen, we have Linnea Quigley, Clancy Brown.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, we've got lots of great new names, and this is a continuation. It's formatted the same way between 1980 and 1989, going through different films and then larger chapters in between. But this one's a deeper dive. This is more of the rarities and the B-sides and the eccentric stuff. And there's some really well-known stuff in there as well. But this time we go across the world with Italian horror films from Japan and New Zealand and Hong Kong, and did I mention Italian? Lots of Italian. So there's lots going on, and so it's all brand new stuff. It's all brand new material, and we're selling it now along with a community experience. So in addition to the documentary, and you can get your credit in the documentary, and you get some cool posters and, enamel pin and digital download of the movie, digital download of the first one if you missed it, and you can get a hard copy in your hand of the DVD or the Blu-ray of the first one. But there's also an online community that we're doing with Discord, where there's Q&As and watch parties, and a lot of the talent, the actors and directors and writers and musicians who are part of the 80s horror zeitgeist are all coming to talk to the fans, and the fans get to talk to each other. And Brian, much like you, have cultivated a really great following with Plaid Stallions and on your Facebook page, and great, lively conversation. We're doing a similar thing with 80s horror on our Discord, and it's a very welcoming community, and real proud to share it.
That's really awesome. I really enjoyed the first film, and actually when we were on our break, I went upstairs, and my wife said, "Who are you talking to next?" And I go, "Do you remember that documentary we watched last year?" She goes, "Oh, I loved that." So she still remembered it.
So David,
yeah.
Let's just back up a second. Tell us how you got involved, like how was this a project that you had sort of on the back burner kind of thing? Like, I don't think I even know the story of the involvement, or how this sort of came to be, or you being involved with it, or starting it, or whatever it was. Like, I don't think I even know the full story. So maybe
yeah, sure. In Search of Darkness Part 1 started as a Kickstarter project in the fall of 2018. And it's all the brainchild of Robin Block, and he's the executive producer he did Last Action Heroes, he did this one, and then he's doing In Search of Tomorrow, and he's a company called Creator VC, where we're making these documentaries and creating these sort of community experiences. And so he brought me on to write and direct this project. And my background being with Famous Monsters and Entertainment Tonight, and doing entertainment journalism and interviewing and so on and so forth, it was an ideal fit for me for something that's very much in my wheelhouse of creating a love letter to 80s horror movies, and getting upwards of now close to, between these two movies, close to 60 icons from the era, whether it's writers or directors or actors or musicians or influencers or journalists or special effects folks. Some of the greatest names who were influential in this era get to sit and talk with them for, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I just sat down. I went to Robert Englund's house about 5 weeks ago and sat down with him for 3 hours to talk about not only the Nightmare on Elm Street films and like Phantom of the Opera, which he did in '89, and he directed 976 Evil, but what's his take on Italian horror? What he did Dead and Buried. Remember that one? He was in that.
Oh, wow.
We get to talk about that movie. We get to talk about his career and all sorts of things.
He's a talker. I went to that. Well, when you invited
you met him. You were there.
Yeah.
I was there when he complimented your ensemble.
He did. He dug my clothes, man. He dug my jacket that I got in London. And he was. I met him at the airport because we both went down to that same convention, and I did the Jack Pierce panel and the. I forgot the other thing I did.
Corey Ackerman and
Yeah, all that stuff.
You did Corey Ackerman and you did Bela Lugosi Jr. You sat down with Bela Lugosi and Jr. to talk about his dad and his father's career.
That's right. That's right.
And thank you for doing that. You came up to Santa Rosa for the Silver Screen Fest and moderated a couple panels and got snuck drinks to me from the bar. It was great.
I did, which is not the first time that I've done that. And he was a trip because he was like, every time I'd see him, because we started chatting at the airport, and I said, hey, I think we're going to the same place, and got talking, and then by the time we got to the show, every time we'd see each other, and he's just one of those guys that you can just give him a spin, and he just bounces around like a top, and he's just getting very big guy.
Thus a 3-hour conversation. I only asked him first one question. I said, "What's your favorite color?" And then 3 hours later, I had a lot of material to work with.
Yeah, he's really something. You gotta, I'm sure, rein him in at times to get the buttons, but he's a character, so that must have been fun doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. This whole project has been really fun, and there was so much material that was never used. If you think about, we got 47 people in the first movie, and I sat down with everyone for an hour or 2 hours each, some even more. And so if you think about all that amazing material that just couldn't make a 4.5 hour cut of a movie the first time around, we had a wealth of material for part 2. But there were so many other names and movies that we wanted to tackle and explore and talk to people about, that I did about 23 more interviews with 15 new faces and, went back with some other folks as well, Kane Hodder and, Cassandra Peterson, who plays Elvira, and Bill Moseley, talked to Phil Noble Jr., of Fangoria, multiple people, just to put in their 2 cents. Again, on all new material. And,
like 4 cents total.
Exactly. There's at least 17 cents, applied to this film. And, but what's cool about it is that, it's like you put these 2 movies together, they're natural progression. It's the same format as the first, where we go 1980 to 1989, where we tackle a bunch of movies within each year, and then there's a larger context chapter in between. You put these 2 movies together, you've got about 9 hours of 80s horror goodness, and it still only scratches the surface. And then you get this online community to talk about it and interact with other people in this time of COVID. It's a pretty good deal, and it's something that I'm real proud of, that we get to make it more than just a documentary, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect time, and the 80s, like horror to the 80s was like Western in the 50s. It really was possibly the most popular genre of the decade, in my opinion. So it's unbelievable. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, you sequeled this. How many movies could... And it's like, oh, you bet you could fill another 4 hours.
Hundreds of movies, and especially if you're including a lot of the greats from around the world. It just... Yeah,
like I'm gonna... You said New Zealand. That has to be bad taste.
Ding, ding, ding.
Okay, good.
Well, also Razorback is in it as well.
Yeah,
Australia, Razorback. I talked to Shinya Tsukamoto, who directed Tetsuo, the Iron Man.
That was the next thing. I think both those films I saw in basements on bootlegs And there was some sort of, substance being used.
Well, you mentioned basements. This is the grimy B-sides, and there's lots of stuff where you've got like movies like Cannibal Holocaust. That was a time when people would, they'd go to their friend's basement when their parents were at work, and you'd pop in that one tape where someone got a hold of Faces of Death.
Oh, yeah.
Heard about that, and you popped it in, and you're just like, what the hell am I watching? That's something that we talk about in the movie.
Do you reference the Video Nasties kind of era?
Yeah.
Of all that was banned in the UK? Yeah. Oh, great.
What about Fulci's Zombie? Did you catch that in the first film, or is it in this one?
Well, that's just prior to the 80s, but I made sure that it made it.
Oh.
But I made sure.
Really, 79?
It's 79.
Yeah. But that's still in our movie. I put a special chapter just on Italian horror.
I hope you cover. So you're covering Umberto Lenzi.
No, just Jason Lenzi.
Oh, God.
Umberto Lenzi is one of the godfathers of Giallo. He really is.
Oh yeah. We dive into Giallo. There's all sorts of stuff. We do a whole chapter on the 80s centric version.
He's more remembered, I think, for his 80s stuff than he is for his late 60s, early 70s Giallo stuff.
So he's your uncle?
He's my great uncle. Yes, he passed away. It's funny. I did find him on Facebook.
Did you?
We sent a couple notes back and forth, and we became friends on Facebook because you don't come across a lot of Lenzis.
I'm sure there is a familial connection somewhere.
There might be. And it might be zombies. I don't know.
Exactly.
But that's very cool. And what I like about this too is I think for the most part when people think of 80s horror, it's sort of all congealed into this the slasher picture. Like everything is, sleepaway camp and and this guy in the woods and all this stuff. But there was a lot more going on in the 80s that I don't think ever gets enough coverage. I think everybody just tends to go, oh, that's when all that stuff kind of kicked off. And
well, Brian wrote a really nice, thoughtful review, and so thank you again for that, Brian.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
But what stuck out to me was one thing that you said, and that was very specifically where you said, I had always kind of dismissed 80s horror as sort of slasher fodder that you really weren't that into. And this movie opened your eyes that there was so much more creativity, and it went so much more inventively beyond just the slasher subgenre that you got a new appreciation for 80s horror.
You changed my mind because prior to watching In Search of Darkness, there was a horror con about 2 hours away that my daughter wanted to attend. And I'm no stranger to that. I love doing that. And we drove the 2 hours, and it was Freddy, Jason, Leatherface. Like it was like the Flintstones, and you just kept walking by the same things. And, it got me so down I didn't even figure that I would want to talk to, Adrian Barbeau was there, and Tom, Atkins was there, and I didn't even talk to them. And it's like, I love both of those people. Like, Tom Atkins is an escape from New York, and so is Adrian Barbeau. Why the hell didn't I go talk to them? Right. But then, I watched your documentary, and I'm like, yeah, that's not the takeaway here. That was one of the most inventive eras of horror ever. And,
isn't it famous, though, that there's a period there in the 80s where, like, I don't know for how many years, but like it just seemed they said like the number one horror thing each year was like a slasher film. Like it seemed to be those are the ones that rose to the top and just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Whereas some of the stuff like The Thing, just bombed. And that's
well, they stole the thunder in terms of perception of the era.
Yeah, exactly.
The Friday the 13th and, the Chuckies and the Hellraisers, essentially, fundamentally, they're still slashers,
Right.
But there's so much creativity, and the advances in practical effects during that period cannot be ignored. Like, it's, and it spilled over into the 90s, I think. But, God, I absolutely, you changed my mind quite a bit, actually, on that whole thing.
Did you, I don't know where he lives, but did you manage to talk to Clive Barker?
Clive Barker decided, it's ironic because now he's literally in the last week or so, he's sort of come out of his cocoon and he's starting to sort of do like AMAs and say, oh, I was writing and I have a book coming out and nice to see everyone again. I'm back. The effort was made, but unfortunately we couldn't get anything in time to, the turnaround for this film, I have to say, is actually very short. Because we wanted to get a lot more people than 15 new faces. We got, like I said, we got about just short of 25 new interviews, but we had to wait 3 months of no interviews. And a lot of people that we had lined up and said yes didn't want to come out for, because of the climate, the COVID climate.
Yeah.
And I don't fault anyone for saying yes and then saying, sorry, I just can't do that right now, because we definitely had to shoot in conditions where we were all wearing masks and social distancing and all that kind of stuff like that. And it's, we would have liked a lot more and we would have enjoyed more time. But we didn't have that luxury. So the fact that I was able to make another 4.5-hour movie with brand new faces and all new brand new material covering all new brand new films I'm pretty satisfied that we got to do that. But there's always In Search of Darkness Part 3 because, there's always going to be people that, did you get this one person? Did you get that person? We didn't get them last time, but maybe we can get them next time.
Well, yeah, I was wondering about the Clive Barker thing because there was a thing on Hulu. What was it called? Books of Blood. He had those short stories.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think they just kind of premiered this sort of an anthology, portmanteau kind of thing about Books of Blood or whatever. And I started looking him up, and I didn't realize he had quite so many, health issues that he's had recently. So I wasn't sure. I'm asking mainly because I wasn't sure if he sort of went underground.
Well, he was doing events where meet and greets, and he's been doing that stuff off and on. But he was an effort was made, but he was in hibernation. So we tried.
You'll get him. If anybody will get him, you'll get him. Don't worry.
I'm going to give him a call again right now. Maybe
tell him, mention my name.
Well, he's absolutely welcome. I mean, we had Doug Bradley, and Doug Bradley went to school with Clive Barker. Obviously, he's in Hellraiser, and that sort of put him on the map. But those guys went to prep school together.
No kidding.
Well, what is your favorite Hellraiser? Because I have a controversial opinion.
My favorite Hellraiser is probably the second one.
Really?
Yeah, I think the first one is very unique because Pinhead and the Cenobites, they're not really, they're just sort of a tangential supporting characters from hell.
Yeah.
From other, demonic dimensions, the levels of hell. But they're not the bad guys. They're sort of like the referees. And in the second one, they take a little more center stage, and you have this one character who wants to become one as well, and does through his evil deeds, and the way they integrate him, and the way they, you get into a bit of Pinhead's backstory was all very interesting to me. And then Doug Bradley was not as pleased with the outcome of Hellraiser 2 because the exchange rate changed and their budget dropped and they almost didn't even do it, but they decided to go with it anyway. And he was very disappointed with the result, that it didn't achieve the heights that they hoped it could achieve with the script that they had.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't, I'm a huge fan of the first one just because I like the concept so much. Mm-hmm. But I understand that the second one is probably the most popular because you explore that world. And I actually think how the first one's so interesting because you want to see more of that.
Right. It makes you, it leaves you wanting more, and that's the best story possible. Yeah. And usually the next time around they give you too much backstory, too much behind, too much origin, whatever it may be. But I thought, for me personally, it was a nice balance. Yeah. That one left me wanting more too, because you saw a bit of that domain, but you didn't spend the whole time there. So that to me was interesting. Plus you got to see how a Cenobite is made from the Cenobite the Cenobite droid factory. So, you know.
I remember that too. I had a really close friend who was really into horror, and I came over to his house for whatever innocuous reason. He's like, "You got to see how a Cenobite is made," and like I just saw that clip. You know, like he had queued up the tape. And I was like, that's all out of context. I don't understand. You know?
If you make it to the end of In Search of Darkness and you make it to the end of the credits, the last credit that comes up, usually when it's like no animals were harmed in this production,
yeah.
I put no Cenobites were harmed in the making of this film.
But they wanted to be. That's the problem.
They requested it.
Yeah.
That's why it was
in their rider.
Just because they asked didn't mean that I accommodated it.
No one can see this, but David's drinking out of a blueberry glass. That is a callback to an earlier discussion.
1, 2,
and
3.
I'm sorry.
Right?
He's drinking out of a General Mills Monsters glass.
There's a set where they have all 3 on one, and then there's 3 individual glasses. No Fruit Brute or Yummy Mummy, but that's okay.
I'm gonna surprise you with this, David, because it correlates to our earlier part of the discussion. In the 1980s, I believe, John Carpenter was tapped to remake Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yes.
And it did not happen. Are you upset about that?
No.
Neither am I. Okay.
Although when I was at his office, I saw the maquette of his version of the creature, so I got to see what it looked like, which was pretty cool.
But was it as iconic as the Universal version?
I can't give you a definitive answer because it's complicated because he did The Thing, and The Thing was a bomb, and The Thing was, to me, is a legendary, iconic, one of my all-time favorite films, not of the 80s but ever. But he also remade Village of the Damned, and the original Village of the Damned is one of my all-time favorites, and his remake is not my cup of tea. So, because I love Creature from the Black Lagoon so much, I think I probably would have not enjoyed it as much, but you will never know, right?
Well, I think
that feels like you prepped for that. That's amazing.
I think the essential problem with that, though, is like,
wait, that cue card's upside down.
What we were talking about in the episode when we were talking about Creature from the Black Lagoon was that the creature's iconic as it is. Like you're better off making a variation on a creature that lives underwater or something, because you can't win. With The Thing, the brilliance of that was conceptually to go in a completely different direction with how this thing was going to be taking over and how they were going to do that. So that, that to me is like the best way to make a remake is like, making it what it is, but putting a spin on it. So it's a very different, you're not just telling the same, like the Body Snatchers, the 50s one versus the 78 one, I think are very different. Themes are all there, but manage to be very different movies. So the Creature of the Black Lagoon thing is like you're kind of stuck. You can't top that design. So I don't know where you sort of go with it, other than to put it in the script or make it more violent or make it more whatever. But you might as well just make a different movie altogether. I don't know why.
That's one of the reasons why I dismissed Monster Squad when it first came out. I thought it was kind of a kiddie movie, and first when I realized that it wasn't the Saturday morning TV show.
Yeah, that was a huge bummer for me.
But when I realized that they kind of skirted the Universal monsters with their own design, so they could kind of do it. I remember looking at the Frankenstein's monster, and I'm like, it's okay. Dracula, obviously they couldn't have Bela Lugosi, and I thought he was okay, but some unknown actor, I don't know who he is. The Mummy was pretty good. The Wolfman, I didn't like that design. Their creature, I thought was real close to as close as they could get, and that's probably the best creature, short of humanoids or the Deep. that's the best.
Oh, that's creature. Something we didn't mention in our episode.
Yeah, short of humanoids of the Deep and Uncle Gilbert on the Munsters, that's the best creature that you get.
Yeah.
And so there. What's my point? I don't know.
Screaming model kit from the screaming model kit of that creature was around everywhere in the 80s, and I remember thinking that as well.
Hey, I didn't even like the Aurora models creature from the Black Lagoon because it looked too different. I was very particular about the creature.
Make the point in the episode that with all those other Universal monsters, all those other creatures, you can sort of do variations. It doesn't have to have the flat top and the bolts coming out the neck. We've seen it a bunch of different ways, and some successful and some not. With the Creature from the Black Lagoon, because it was made for, it's the thing that exists because of the movie and the script and everything else, that it's an original thing, that I think it's an uphill battle to try to remake it. Because all you're doing is, people love the movie because of the creature. I don't think it's the stuff in the movie. Whereas you can look at a lot of other Universal horror and say there's a lot other stuff going on there.
And I'm sure you talked about it, but Guillermo del Toro won an Oscar for pretty much doing his own version of Creature from the Black Lagoon as a love story that's more realistic in this day and age. And I still, even though I thought the monster looked really cool, he just looked like Abe Sapien to me. We
kind of talked about it toward the end of the show, and we were kind of saying that we felt we didn't feel like it was a complete remake. It was a variation on it to me. I think it's enough that you can go, you can see the influence.
Yes.
But it's not the same story.
It felt like a love letter to it in a way.
Yeah.
But definitely you find your own story and do your own thing. And to case in point, like we were discussing, it is sort of it's a bit of a programmer. It's just an exceptionally well done programmer in a way. Like, that spawned two sequels and had one of the most iconic monster characters of our lifetimes in it.
Well, that one to me has always been, the Creature from the Black Lagoon has always been my favorite classic monster, because it was the one monster that, to me, when I was a kid, looked like a monster and not someone in makeup. So it didn't look like Jack Pierce makeup. It looked like a monster. You couldn't see the zippers. You couldn't see the seams. Yeah. You couldn't see where they applied the gills. It was a head to toe suit that could swim underwater. And so I believed it through and through, especially when he'd be walking on land and the gills would be going like,
Yeah.
There was movement. There was believability there. And so it always had a special place in my heart. Tangentially speaking, and this is unrelated, but talking about, sequels and franchises and remakes and all that kind of stuff like that. I've been doing a deeper dive than I normally do with classic horror, with classic Universal and Hammer as sort of a palate cleanser to the 80s horror that I've been feasting on for quite some time now. And I had never, ever seen House of Frankenstein, and I'd never seen House of Dracula.
Really?
And they just always escaped me. I've seen practically everything else, but those I had never seen. And there they are on the Peacock streaming channel, instant gratification, and I put them on. And I want to talk to you guys about John Carradine's Dracula, and where does he fit in your appreciation of people playing that character? Because he's been in other monster movies and things like that, and up to Monster Club. Isn't he in Monster Club as well?
He most definitely is.
Yeah, and so I always thought John Carradine was sort of the missing link of, I never saw those on a Saturday afternoon.
No
but
kidding,
I always saw them. But I always saw him in Famous Monsters, and I was just like, all right, so he's the missing piece of the puzzle. And I finally got to see him doing his thing. And I think he was a unique casting choice, and I think he was good in the job that he did. But I just, I can appreciate it now, but it never quite connected with me. So
I feel the same way. I was bent because the first time I saw John Carradine playing Dracula, I think it was Billy the Kid versus Dracula. So that'll ruin anyone's day. And then the next time I saw him play Dracula was in the Vampire Hookers.
Oh, well,
yeah.
That makes an impression on you.
It makes something. That is not, even though it had tons of nudity, I turned it off.
That's the sequel to Texas Chainsaw Hookers, isn't it? Or something like that?
No, it isn't.
Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers.
It's a Filipino piece of trash. But it does have Vic Diaz in it, so I needed to watch it. So when I
want Victor Buono or no one, so okay.
He'd be the greatest Dracula ever. so when I first saw the monster rallies, and I did not see those until I was in my 20s, I was kind of like, on Carradine's Dracula. But I love the they're not good movies. They're flawed. They're almost like Halloween specials to me. But I do absolutely love them because they're like an hour and 5 minutes long.
Right. They fly by, and, Lon Chaney Jr. shows up in every single one doing the same performance every single time. Nice and, gives a straight performance.
It's a great performance.
Lawrence Talbot, yeah.
And you've got that little gypsy in one of them who looked exactly like a girl I was dating in my 20s. It was like, wow.
And you were like, I'm not even a hunchback. I've got
I can stand up tall. But yeah, they're okay, and I think as the years have gone on, I've come to appreciate Carradine's Dracula. It's more out of the book, I think. Yeah. And it's less
sort of a gentleman, the way he dresses and behaves.
Yeah, a nobleman almost.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Like, nobody's coming off great in those movies. Nobody's like, but it's just
in my circle, which arguably is a small circle, his name never ever came up. I mean, we even knew who, like, that Glenn, that in Abbott and Costello versus Meet Frankenstein, that it was Glenn Strange. Like, we knew the names of these people. And no one ever mentioned a word about John Carradine. And I only figured out that John Carradine was Dracula or a Dracula, in the pages of Famous Monsters, and then, just later on. But those movies never crossed my path, so it was rewarding to see it.
Yeah. Jason, you ever seen those?
I might have. Carradine kind of freaks me out because of his hands. So whatever whatever point he got to in his life where the hands started to get wonky, I get distracted, and I tend to.
It's funny. The Al Adamson box sets. I've been watching those during the shutdown, and there is a mention of his hands in one of the commentaries of like, he had severely arthritic hands, and yeah.
I mean, James Coburn got pretty bad too at a certain point in his life, but the Carradine ones are really. I'm not trying to make fun. I'm just saying that actually bled into some of the stuff that he did too after that. Like, that was sort of his Rondo Hatton, little.
Right.
Hey guys, I'm sorry, we got to wrap up this mini. I'm sorry, but my Bowie has been dancing around.
That's what I look like.
Before your pooch piddles, we got to go.
Yeah, I got to get him. He's been very patient with our previous 2-hour episode, and now he's looking at me like I'm insane. So
yeah, actually, I should probably go to bed. So, but thanks for joining us, David. And how do people get involved? They go to 80shorror.com?
80shorror.com. That's all you need to do. 80shorror.com, or you can go, our socials are at 80shorrordoc. And it's between now and midnight on Halloween that we're offering up the movie and the community and the posters and the cool stuff. And if you liked In Search of Darkness Part 1, you'll love In Search of Darkness Part 2 because it's just a continuation. I think I said In Search of Darkness Bark 2. So it must be Bowie.
Bowie's influencing.
But yeah, just check it out, and you can get all the details on the website about who's in it and who's involved, and trailers and all sorts of fun stuff. And anyway, I appreciate you guys allowing me to bring attention to it because I think it's real fun stuff.
Yeah, I really loved the first one, and this is my jam, so I'm excited.
And one thing I think I mentioned, but you get your name in the credits too, which is super cool.
Oh, wasn't cool. The premiere of the one with I actually went with David. No, I'm sorry, David Weiner. You're David Weiner. I went with Matt Weinholt to the premiere.
Yes.
In Search of Darkness.
Yeah, you guys were
down at the Egyptian, right?
Right at Beyond Fest about a year and a week ago. We premiered it in 2 parts at Beyond Fest, and it was I was very appreciative that you were able to make it, and you stayed for the whole movie.
Yeah, Dante tried to make out with me in the back row, if I remember.
Yeah, well, listen, these things happen when you watch my movies. They turn on the love light. That's all I can say.
For Dante, let me tell you.
Listen, they're long movies. You put it on the background and listen. Do it nature tells you to do. That's all I can say.
I made the mistake of saying how much I love the Burbs, and he was all over me.
Oh my God, I love the Burbs. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thanks, guys.
Very excited for you. This sounds very cool, and I'm glad people are going to find out about it much more.
Happy Halloween, guys.
Happy Halloween.
Be back very soon, buddy.
Take care.
Cheers.